Hello, Art17 here, and we're in week 10 now. We talk about assignment 18, ink techniques. We're going to be using ink pens, like a Sharpie, but if you can acquire one that is a little bit of an upgrade from Sharpie, that would be great. You can find them at art stores. An '08 is about a medium-sized tip, which is going to be good. You don't want something too thin or too thick, so medium size. So it makes a good mark, but not too thick of a mark. In a Sharpie, if you were working with the felt tip pen type, that's going to be a little too thick. So it's a more of a thin tip that renders a ink dot, medium size, not something real thin and real small, but not something real thick either. You get a good indication of that by the video I'm going to provide as well. So there will be a video on doing these ink techniques, and watch that. You can look at the ink pen that the artist has and determine what you can get to accomplish this assignment. So let's go ahead and look at ink techniques. Now, you want a rounded surface so that you can show the shading going around the surface. So it's just like the apple in the shading video I showed weeks ago, where the light source hits at a certain point, and then there's a very lit up part of the apple, or the round subject item. And then there's a backside, which the gradual transition from tone change creates a mid-tone and then into the darker tone, and it has a reflection area off the very, very bottom from the table. Light bouncing off the table. Now, that was all explained in that one video on shading in week 1, I believe. So might have to go reference that, or you've been shading all along and know what we're talking about now when we talk about shading with our light source, then that's going to work for you. These are all rounded surfaces like a ball that are showing that. And the assignment is to take 4 or 5 of these ink techniques and practice them on a rounded surface with a cast shadow. So if notice, all of these have a cast shadow at the bottom of the page, or the bottom of the subject. And it's a really small picture, so I'm hoping that you're getting this, but see if I find something a little larger. There you go. So this is like scribbling, and this is stippling. Stippling is little dots. Cross-hatching is more like this. This is more of maybe a contour line, although it's not really going with the shape of the ball as much as something like this is. See how it's going with the shape of the ball, the lines that they're making? Well, any of these marks are, what you're doing is you're putting saturated amounts, very congested amounts of marks where you want it to be darker shaded. And then less where you want the the midtones, and then even less and less where you want it to start getting very light, and then none where it's very light. With the stippling here, you can tell very well how that's working. And the scribble is another mark you can make to do that. Cast shadow on the table. You leave a little bit of a less on the backside underneath for the reflection off the table, and that separates the ball from the cast shadow. So you're able to separate the tones there, because the cast shadow is going to be a little darker than this part down here, especially with the reflection mark right there. This one's not showing a reflection mark all that well, but you can see about these sporadic lines going across that there's many more on this side where the dark shadow area is, and less over here where the light is hitting. That's the whole idea behind this whole project. Now you can pick balls to do. Look at these on Bing if you want again, and find there's various places where they are. Here's going with the contour, meaning the shape of the ball. These are really well done. So less and less marks where you want it to be lighter, and more marks where you want it to be darker. And then here they got the reflection area back in here underneath from the light bouncing off the table onto the ball. And then you have your cast shadow, which is starting dark very much under the ball and then lightly coming out from the ball. It dissipates a little. So less marks where you want it to be lighter. More marks where you want it to be darker. Let's look at eggs because those are a good one to look at too. Let's try eggs. It's a good way to do it too. The egg shapes work really well. This is scribbling. That's stippling. This is more of your contour. Three different ways to do contour hatch. Cross hatching. This is more of just a cross hatching. It's probably not as successful showing the shape of the egg as these are. These are better. This one's not so good, right? Because they kind of left it right there. They should have probably extended it down with another lesser tone, a little less marks, but some more down, so that it would go down further and not just suddenly a line there. That's not accurate. So, let's see what this one looks like. Not as successful as the other one. You really want to show the round surface of the object, the round shape of it, by showing the light source hitting on the top where there's probably no marks. Then you start adding a little mark, little more, where you want it to be darker where the light isn't hitting. This is where the light isn't hitting. It's hitting on the top. So here's the shadow area, not hitting, getting light on it, so it's darker. The bottom's lighter because you're getting a little bit of reflected light off the table. Okay. These aren't showing a lot of reflected light on them, but they still are showing the shape of the ball really well. So when you add a cast shadow on here, it might get lost right at the edge because you didn't lighten it up right there with that reflected light. So you want to be conscious of that. And in any case, I want you to show the cast shadow on the table. This one's like floating above it. You can't see it when I do that, but look at that squiggly line one right there. Looks like it's floating, right? Because the cast shadow's like under it and there's a space. That's not accurate either. You know, the ball is going to be sitting on the surface. Now you could try other shapes to do this, but make them all the same shape. Like if you're using shells or penguins or little fish, make the same fish shape all the way around, and then for 4 or 5 objects, and then show the round shape of that object by shading with these marks. Okay, watch the video because the video explains it really well. There's going to be 2, one on eggs and then one on balls. And then you do this project, and that'll be for this number 18. Yeah, so you want 4 or 5 objects. You want to shade them well to show the shape of the egg or the ball. You want to cast shadow, and it'll all be in the video, so watch those videos. All right.